This is Shea Crawford from Brandon Allstars, and this is Let's Talk Cheer podcast.
And we're on. This is the Let's Talk Cheer podcast, and I'm your host, Jason Larkins, where we talk cheer, we talk life, and we talk whatever comes to mind. 5, 6, 7, 8, let's get started.
Turn it up, you tuning into Let's Talk Cheer with Jason Larkins. We're talking cheer, we're talking like we know we're always talking. So listen up, you boy, I'm about to go all in. 5, 6, 7, 8, we're on, let's begin.
This is episode number 95. Not sure there's going to be a 96, but thank you for joining another great episode for you guys. Today we have on Shea Crawford, Tumbling Director at Brandon Allstars. If you've been listening to the show for a while, you know that Shea is a friend of the show. I reference him a ton, and I'm glad that you guys finally get to meet him. If it's your first time here, thank you for checking out the show. We always have a great guest on like Shea, or just flat out an interesting conversation. So definitely be sure to subscribe so that you never miss out. On any future episodes. And if you're on YouTube, definitely be sure to smash that like button. And then also feel free to leave a comment. I'd love a comment. Just say hi or your thoughts on the episode. Whatever comes to mind, leave a comment, smash the like button. We'd really appreciate it. Shout out to my mother, Sheila, Claire, Sarah, Robin, Adriana, Chanel, Tamara, myself, my not-so-mysterious supporter, Heather Peterson of Flipside, Pablo representing for all the cheer dads out there, our mate Michelle, and to the newest supporter, the big homie Mike. Mike, man, thank you. I really appreciate it. I truly appreciate it, man. I was glad to see your name pop up on that list. If you want to financially support the show, you can do so for as little as 99 cents a month. Link in the show notes, link in the description. And for those looking for the best free way to support the podcast, all you have to do is share the podcast. Send it to a friend, send it to another coach, post it on your social media. And speaking of sharing this on your social media, this is episode 95, which means we're announcing our giveaway winners. Yes, that's right. I said winners with an S. I mentioned them before, but Twist Stars and One Elite All-Stars, you guys have been sharing. You guys have been going above and beyond when it comes to sharing. So we have 2 winners this month. And as a thank you, I appreciate all of the support that you and everyone on your staff have been showing the podcast, and their prize for winning is a free coaches training. We'll hop on a Zoom call together and either do one of my pre-planned presentations or we'll just do an open Q&A. Either way, I'm excited to talk with both of these programs. So if you and your program want to be our next month's winners, all you have to do to enter the giveaway is screenshot an episode of the podcast, post that to your Instagram story, and then tag our Instagram in the post. That's it. Share the podcast on your story, tag the Let's Talk Cheer podcast in the post, and you are entered to win. The winners will be announced in episode 100. Super excited for episode 100. Have a few special guests coming in for that episode. So again, make sure you're subscribed so you don't miss out on that. The more shares, the more entries. Someone is going to win. Why not you? Also, I've also been doing the Slide the Bar giveaway on Instagram. So if you go to our Instagram story, again, Let's Talk Cheer Podcast Instagram, if you see those slidable bars on our story, you can slide that bar and you're entered to win a free video review. So again, slide the bar, enter to win a free video review. It's too easy, way too easy. I'm the cheer director at American Cheer, AKSC.com, sharing with you my life, running a program, managing a staff, coaching the athletes, and working with the parents. And on the other side of the microphone is a longtime friend, a longtime listener, longtime supporter, and his second time on the show, Shea Crawford. Shea Crawford, welcome to the show, man.
Thanks for having me, man. I appreciate it.
Yeah, it's good to have you back this time. Everyone knows who listens to the podcast. I always reference you on the show, but Shea, friend of the show. And we had you on for the Coda Points thing, but it wasn't really like you really being on the show like the way we interview all the other guests. So glad that we get to have you on for real this time. And we're going to, take a little journey down memory lane, see who you are as a person, who you are as a coach, and, get talking, man. So you ready to do this?
Yeah, man, let's go.
Here we go. So let's hop straight into this. Shea, how'd this whole thing start for you? How'd you get into cheerleading? Take us from the beginning.
I was born into it. My dad owned a gymnastics gym when I was born, and I grew up in gymnastics. He had women's gymnastics, so but of course I lived in the gym and I was tumbling, and he ended up closing his gym and moving to Alabama. He was coaching a high school gymnastics team, and he would work with the cheerleaders on the side. And I'd never really been on a team of any kind. I did some power tumbling here and there, and I worked everything, and I could tumble. So got into cheer in high school and cheered freshman, sophomore, junior year of high school. And then my dad and my girlfriend's mom at the time started an all-star program. And then my dad opened a gym and on it went. I ended up cheering at a small school in Alabama, and we won UCA way back in the day. And I fell in love with it, and I had to go check out. I was on NCAA staff. Had to go down to NCAA college nationals because that was it. That was the creme de la creme. So went down, checked it out, fell in love with it, got a job offer in Tampa at a gym called Florida Wildcats at the time, and it was a massive space that had gymnastics, cheerleading, taekwondo, had the whole thing. And so I coached there for a couple years. I was coaching gymnastics and cheerleading, and I was just immersed in I'd stay up there all night, like past closing time, just going over drills and picking gymnastics coaches' brains. And, I just, I couldn't have been any more in love with it. And I had some kids that would, in the summer, they would stay after, like when the team practices were done, there were office staff still working. So we'd just go out on the floor into the pits, and they would just tumble and tumble and tumble. And they were really good. And we went over to Daytona. They all kind of checked it out and got offers from Hawaii Pacific. So I think at the time it was like 6 or 7 kids that I worked with that all got offers from HPU. And we all went out to HPU. I actually had left that gym and was moving back to Alabama, which is where I'm from. And I was things weren't going really well for me at this. It's a small gym at the time, and just wires crossed and different ideas. And I was literally standing in a parking lot, walking to my car, and I got a call from Matt Parkey, and he was like, "Hey, got some of your kids, and they all seem to tumble really well. Would you be interested in being an assistant coach at HPU?" And I was like, "Whoa!" Like I wasn't thinking about it. It wasn't on my mind. I'd done a couple years. I did college when I cheered, but I was like, all right, I'm kind of done with college and gonna make cheer my full time. And had this opportunity, and 2 weeks later, I was in Dallas, Texas at NCAA camp for HPU as the assistant coach. So went out there, '04 to '06, small co-ed, large co-ed, won titles both years. It was incredible. Of course, living in Hawaii, but for me at the time, the coolest part was we had so many kids from so many different places that had been taught so many different ways. So I was having to, like I had my ways that I was coaching. Sorry, my son's iPad's beeping over there. I apologize. Um, but I had kids from Alaska and New Jersey, Florida, Texas. I mean, literally all over the country. We even had some kids from Canada, and they'd all been taught different ways. And I had my way, but I had to learn how to talk their way and learn their techniques and
Mm-hmm.
be able to coach their techniques. And as far as I got my college degree, but I got a degree in public relations while I was there. But that was I got my doctorate in cheerleading, tumbling at that time. In my opinion,
Mm-hmm.
it was awesome. I got the luxury of coaching your sister to a
Yep.
national title. I was assistant coach. I was not the head coach, but being in there every day was just cool.
There we
Um,
go. Good stuff, man.
Yeah.
All right, so let's go back to Snead State real quick. You actually mentioned Snead. You
Yeah.
just said a small school that won UCA, but I didn't realize you went to Snead State, and I remember competing against them when I was at Palomar, and I was like, "Oh, dude, he went to Snead." So,
Yeah.
dude, tell me about Snead. What was your experience like there?
It was there was actually another school, Wallace State, and my dad had done tumbling there, and I had my heart
Hmm.
set on Wallace State, and all my friends were going to Wallace State, and we had a whole group that were all gonna leave high school together and go there. And I was a tumbler. I couldn't stunt to save my life. I was little. All my friends could stunt, but I could not. But I could tumble, and so I actually broke my ankle right before tryouts and did not make Wallace State. And I was like, oh my God, like that was my that was my plan. Like I had planned on that since my junior year in high school. I wanted to play baseball, but got hurt and couldn't play. And but I could still tumble, I could tumble on one foot and didn't make it. And then Snead coach called me out, was like, hey, we got a spot. Do you want to come? And I was like, every other option at the moment is gone. And it was pretty much like Wallace is 45 minutes this way and Snead was 45 minutes this way, just opposite directions. Snead was it. So went there. Um, and I will say that all 3 years that I was at Snead State, we beat Wallace every single year. Um, and we ended up winning in 2001. So that was pretty awesome. Um, got little karma returns there, Matt Kelly. Uh, but it was awesome. My best friend, actually, it's funny enough, in 2001. So I was there for 3 years, back when you could be at a junior college for 15 years. I was at a junior college for 3 years, and 2001, the year we won, several of my friends that were over at Wallace ended up coming over, and the coach Libby Bates was amazing. I owe a lot to her because my first semester, my freshman year, I did what a lot of freshmen do. I didn't really pay attention in class, but I was there to cheer, and and so she got me on the right track, and I owe her a lot. She was a huge mentor in my path, and I still stay in touch with her to this day. She still reaches out. It's cool to watch and see so many of those people that I cheered with, and see them growing up. So that's pretty cool. Did that through 2001, and then, um, you know, that was a huge that was the first time that somebody like really took a chance on me because, um, I was done. I was hurt. I was in a cast. I couldn't do anything, and she
Yeah,
knew I wasn't going to be able to do anything for a while. And I battled injuries the whole time I was there, ankles, knees. I never, well, not knees, ankles and wrists. I hurt my elbow pretty bad. Um, just because I just like to beat myself up, I guess. You know?
yeah.
So, yeah.
All right. So actually, fun fact: actually, I had two roommates actually cheered at Wallace. So when I cheered at SFA, when I transferred over, the next year, Baby J, shout out to Baby J,
Oh,
and
Baby J,
Dustin
yeah, I know
Moore
Baby
actually
J.
came over. Yeah,
Yeah, I know
so
those
we
guys.
competed against them when they're at Wallace. Yeah, that was good times. Oh yeah. You know Baby J. Yeah. So
Yeah.
yeah, they both cheered at Wallace, and they had beat us. Wallace won UCA in 2004, and we got second. And so I hated Wallace State, like hated them. And it is actually so true. I used to put up. I remember that after we came back from nationals, we lost. I had, as we're getting ready for the next season, I had printed out all this like Wallace State, paraphernalia and put it all over our apartment. So I had like bulletin board material all over our apartment because I wanted to make sure like we were not going to lose a Wallace State again. And so, yeah, we went the next year and won in 2005. So that was, redemption. But yeah, I remember, yeah, I did not like Wallace State at all, when
I
I was
didn't
back,
either.
back at
And
Palomar.
just want to make sure that the record is straight that Wallace did not beat Snead until after Libby Bates left and the program was done. So Wallace State never beat Snead State under the guidance of Libby Bates.
There you go. Now we know because I was confused. All right, so here we go. So now let's go to. Actually really like this story, which I did not know. So you get to HPU, or so you're coaching these athletes at this gym. They all turn out to be pretty decent tumblers, and they all end up going to HPU.
Matt Parkey calls you up and is like, hey, we need a tumbling coach. Seems like these kids are, or we need a coach in general. Seems like these kids are pretty talented and that you had a hand in that. So what was that like? Just tell me about that transition. Like, what was the decision-making process like? Like that whole, like, just take me through your mindset at that time.
Like I said, I was literally standing in a parking lot, and I knew that the gym that I was at the time was not the right fit, and I needed an out. Like I had to get out of there. Um, and that phone call just hit at the perfect time because I was literally just like at my wit's end with, I was like not making enough money. My philosophies don't align with what they're doing. I just need to get out of here. And that phone call hit me at the perfect time. And I literally had 2 weeks to find a place to live, coordinate getting to Dallas, I literally, in 2 weeks from that day, I had gone home, sold my car, like sold everything I could sell, had to get on a lease out in Hawaii. I ended up living with, there were five of us in a one-bedroom apartment in Waikiki. Um, Hawaii is amazing, and living there as a broke college student is it's a journey. But I walked. Our first practice was at Chair Athletics, and that was the mecca. Walking into the mecca and getting to coach HPU, and walking in there, I didn't know any of the only kids I knew were the kids that I had worked with, which was a handful. We had probably 200 kids there because we had dance team, we had a small co-ed, large co-ed, all girl, alternates, mascot. So I'm walking around. Nobody knew who I was. Like nobody. I did. At the time. And here I am walking up to these kids who were the elite of the elite and trying to tell them what to fix on their tumbling. At the beginning was kind of like, who is this guy? Like who does he think he is? And then we got to camp and they were getting ready for All American, and these kids were like, I need somebody to spot me. And they're like, Shay's the guy. So kids that had no idea, and I didn't know they're tumbling, and they didn't know me. And so then once right there, I think they all kind of saw, like I lined up. There was a line of like 20 of them, and there was a really big guy that needed some help in his twist. And so I think once they all saw that I can take care of them, and that was ultimately, like I said, I didn't teach Matt Kelly or Matt Brown how to tumble. It was just kind of like hey, you're going this direction, maybe you go this direction, or hey, if you land like this, it might save your ankles a little bit. So it was more efficiency. Now I will say the last year, or the first year I was there, was the last year doubles were legal. And we came back from Thanksgiving break, and Parky said, Shay, everybody that's spinning a full needs to spin a double. Everybody that can't spin has to spin. And so that 2 or 3 weeks between Thanksgiving and Christmas break was, I literally remember leaving practices, and the trainers, I had ice on both shoulders. Like I looked like a football player walking out of practice just because we didn't have any mats. We didn't have any. It wasn't drills and trampoline. We did go to a gymnastics gym and practice like every now and then, so that was heaven. But when we were at practice, I mean, we would be out in the park, or we'd be, roll out the mats and at school and or at the YMCA, and the mats. This was drill one, and this was drill two. That was it. So that was how we did it. So you make it work. And then we came back from break, and I was like, Parky, I don't, I don't, these are the ones that I think can get it. These are the ones that, like, we have to have a better plan because, um, so we adjusted the plan, and it ended up working, small co-ed, large co-ed,
Yeah.
both won. Um, so,
All right. So HPU, after HPU, take me through the different gyms you've been at since HPU. I don't want to leave any out.
when I was at HPU, I had a job offer in Las
I said, what?
Vegas, and because I got my PR degree, I was working at a marketing company there in Hawaii, and got a job offer in Las Vegas. I flew to Las Vegas. I finished out my semester, finished out my lease, flew to Las Vegas. When I got to Las Vegas, I was in the airport, got on a payphone because I didn't even have a cell phone. I was as broke as they get at this moment.
Mm-hmm.
I called the company to let them know, and they said the guy I was talking to said someone hired for your position. Someone else in the company hired your position last night.
Mm.
I'm like, I'm in the airport. I just left Hawaii. I'm in Las Vegas. What are you talking about?
Yeah.
Um, I was literally like the plan was to leave the airport and go sign a lease and then go to work.
Mm-hmm.
And and I sat in there. I was like, "So are you telling me I don't have a job?" And they're like, "No." I was like, okay." So I got on the phone and I called everybody, and I remember no one answered because I was so early. I think I landed like, or it was so late. I was,
Yeah.
like the time zones, and everybody I knew was on the East Coast, and nobody was
Mm-hmm.
answering the phone. And I was calling everybody. Like I was like, and all I had was nickels, quarters, and I didn't even have a cell phone. So I
Yeah.
was like running through. I was like, all right, if they don't answer, at least I get my quarter back. So um, I was calling and calling and calling, and I got an answer, and I I had to. Then I got a job offer at Brandon Allstars in 2006, and
Mm-hmm.
had to borrow money from my grandfather, which I'd never borrowed money from anybody ever in my life, and it was
Yeah.
it was a gut check moment, but I had to get there. I was stuck in the airport with literally a duffel
Yep.
bag, and so I flew to Tampa. I crashed on George Carrillo's couch for about 3 weeks. I was
Mm-hmm.
teaching, tumble prep class, and I had one private with a 6 year old, and I had that for about 2 weeks. And like in my mind, I just left HPU. We just won college nationals back to back, and I'd had all this great experience. And but at that gym at that time, those kids already had a relationship with them. It didn't matter how good I was. It didn't matter what I do. I didn't have that relationship with those kids. So I walked in with all my rings and all this, and those kids didn't care. They had a relationship with that coach, and they liked them, and so it took me a while to really get in there and build a relationship with the kids and the coaches. Um, and I was there from 2006. I coached there for 8 years. So I coached senior white and junior silver. We won our first NCAA title at Brandon with our junior four team. I coached the medium co-ed team. Did a lot of the tumbling for all the teams. So over the years, I learned and got involved, and right there towards the end, probably like 2013, just some kids aged out and graduated and went on to college, and I took the pressure of having to make this team the same caliber that it had always been, and I my mentality had changed, and I just wasn't it wasn't good, like I was just always unnecessary added pressure on myself and on the kids. And it had run the course. And after 8 years, um, my wife had moved down. For those that don't know my wife, Erica Travieso, she currently coaches mini two, junior four, and senior black at Brandon, and coaches and works at the pro shop. And sorry, she's the director of our pro shop. If you saw my house right now, you'd see boxes. That's why I'm literally in our bedroom right now, because there are boxes piled to the ceiling of like the Amazon or the Prime Amazon delivery is like, man, your Christmas is still going. I'm like, dude, this is every day, man, every day. But she had moved down. She coached at Brandon for a very brief amount of time. It wasn't a fit for her, and she had gone to a gym, Stars. That didn't work out. And then she went to Florida Wildcats, which was the gym that I coached at before I moved to Hawaii. Um, and so that last year, I went in and spoke with Jocelyn, and was like, just I think it's time. And she was like, yeah, I think it is too. And she told me something I'll never forget. And she said, Shay, I think right now you want it more than the kids do, and you can never want it more than the kids. And she was right. She was at the moment, you know, nobody could tell me anything. At the moment, I was just mad. But I still remember that conversation very vividly. And we left on good terms. There was no bad feelings or anything. It was just had run its course. Went to Florida Wildcats for a year, and then got a job offer at Gym Time in Louisville, Kentucky. Um, and as I say, these different locations, it's very hard to find a program that is a good fit for two people. Jason, I'm sure you can attest. To make it a career with one is it's challenging, but when you to try to find the right spot for two people to make it a career, it's very different. So I moved up to Louisville, Kentucky. I got the distinguished honor to be able to coach with Kaylin Cook and Debbie Love, which still to this day I reference both of them daily. Like they're the way that Kaylin can explain a stunt is just unlike any other. And like I said, I'd been coming off kind of a negative place. I was the screaming coach. If I was louder than you, then I was getting in my way. And coaching with Debbie Love at that time was exactly what I needed because she never raises her voice. She never, um, never yells or anything like that. And and I remember one day, I was always the conditioning guy, like, oh, you don't do this, and you owe me 50 bear crawls, 500 burpees. And one time the team came in and they weren't focused, and she said, "All right, guys, we need to work on our focus a little bit. We need to improve. So let's everybody, let's go to the side, and we're gonna do some butt scoot suicides." And I had no idea what a butt scoot was, but it was literally like, you're sitting on your bottom, and you have to you have to pick your body up, move it forward, and then down, and without
Mm-hmm.
letting your feet touch the ground. So you're literally just using your arms to lift your body forward. Um, and if you go the length of the floor, which is 42 feet, that sucks. It burns. It's miserable.
Yeah.
You do a suicide, Jason, I tell you what, I was like the sweetest, nicest, kindest lady in the most precious
Yeah.
tea you've ever heard. Literally just tried to kill these kids.
Yeah.
And when I said, and I'm seeing like the guys on the team who are in good shape, like they're like, Debbie, can we stop? Like, I can't do anymore. And she's like, I believe in you. Like, you've got this. You got to have faith, and maybe we'll improve our focus moving forward. Do we all agree? Like, well, let's practice our focus right now. Let's focus on our breathing
Yeah.
as we scoot to the next line. And I'm like, this is savage. This
Yeah,
is
man.
savage. But I learned in that moment, and there were several other learning moments, but that one stands out that, I don't have to be so loud. I don't have to be aggressive
Yeah.
to get, like that's not the way, like it had worked. I'm not saying that there aren't moments that I don't raise my voice ever again, but the way that I was doing it was wrong. And I learned that
Yeah.
in that moment. And um there were a lot and at gym time at the time there were a lot of moving parts as far as the brand and the business. And at the time, Misty couldn't have been better to my wife and I. That she took great care of us, and she pulled us in, and she was like, "Hey, like this is the situation we're in. We can move forward like this, or we can move forward like this. I know if we move forward like this, it's going to be really hard on y'all." Um, and so I asked her, I was like, would you be okay if we looked, to see what other options were out there at the time? And and she said, yeah, I completely respect that. So I had an offer from Midwest Cheer Elite in Cincinnati, Ohio, um, and we moved there. We were there for a year and a half. And I learned a lot. I learned a lot when I was there too. Just I had a little more involvement in class structure, and I'd always kind of been like, I coach this team, I do this, and it's me. And at that moment, I was a little more involved with kind of helping others share share with others what I knew. So as far as like a staff involvement, that was a big piece that I take away from that experience. As far as training staff and program culture, and adjusting it and changing it and molding it. Um, So after a year and a half, we had a kid. My wife got pregnant, and we had a son, and he was born in September, and right there, middle of October into November, you know, it was the same similar situation. It was time to go, and it was kind of, at gym time. When I was at gym time, I was coaching a small co-ed, and I remember I don't know what year that was. I think it was 2016, the 15-16 year. And I was coaching at gym time, and we had a small co-ed, and they were going to be really good. And I called Jocelyn, and I was like, "Hey, I'm going to be coaching against you, and I just want to give you a heads up. Like, I just want to be respectful. Like I had the utmost respect for Brandon and Senior Black at that time, and I felt I owed it to her to let her know that I was going to be competing against her. And yeah, we can compete, but I still want to be respectful." And it was really, I still have the picture, but it was really cool because platinum gym time platinum, we won like Group A of at Cheersport, and Senior Black won Group B, and so in Senior Black's division, we got to win the other one, and I thought that was really cool. And so that was kind of the we hadn't really, when I was at Wildcats, we were still in Tampa, so we were competing against each other, so it wasn't the same kind of culture or relationship, I guess. And then at Gym Time, it really kind of opened that door for conversations, and we'd see each other at NCA, and I think we even all went out to dinner together, like their staff, our staff, or hanging out after a competition, just chat, just talking about life. How's it going? Um, and then after Midwest, um, over the right around that break, I called Jocelyn again and was like, "Hey, I think it's time that we come home." and and she was like, "Well, I have our rule is that you gotta teach X amount of classes to be able to do private lessons, and I have one class available, which means you can do one of this. And as far as Erica, she can coach a prep team and do a stretch class." And so we moved to Tampa. My wife, myself, and at the time, my 4-month-old son lived in the studio. My mother-in-law actually lived in Tampa, and so the four of us lived in a studio there in Tampa in January. So it was nice and chilly. Not quite as cold as it gets other places, but it was a little chilly. So we just grinded. I was like, "Hey, we gotta grind. We gotta work." And so we did. She got another job. She was working for the Melting Pot in their corporate office, and or maybe that was before. No, I timed that wrong. She worked in the Melting Pot when she was at Wildcats. So when we came back, like that was the only job either one of us had. And she was looking at getting some other jobs, and just about the right time. Um, One coach in the gym was moving. Her husband had been stationed in the military, was stationed somewhere else, so she had to leave. So Erica kind of filled in that spot, and then there were a few classes that had opened up, so I was able to kind of fill in those spots, and just building it back up. And then that was actually, I think it was this week is 5 years that Erica and I have been back at Brandon Allstars. So, um, she ended up working with Junior Silver that year, which was kind of cool because Junior Silver was, Jocelyn and I kind of started that, and Jocelyn and I and Kyle had coached them and won NCA and all that jazz. So, kind of neat to see that. And then the day that she got the Senior Black offer, it was funny because it was at the end of the season, and we had some people that we like, oh, we you know we knew people in the industry were moving around, and we had been watching. We were like, oh man, I hope this person doesn't come to Tampa. I don't even want to be around them.
Mm-hmm.
And so she came up to me one day and she was like, "Hey, I need to talk to you outside," that's not my wife. Like usually when we're in the gym, like if we're
Mm-hmm.
working with the same team, we talk. But other than that, like I'm usually on a rod floor, tumble track, and she's on a floor, or she's in the pro shop.
Yeah.
So we don't really get to communicate a whole lot on the floor. So she literally like walked out on the floor. I was like, oh, I'm thinking, is my son okay?
Yeah.
Something going on. And and she walked outside. She was like, there's going to be another coach for senior black. And I was like, oh, who is it? Like, I was like, oh no, like they're bringing in somebody that we, neither one of us like. And she was like, me.
Yeah.
Like, oh my, like I literally like teared up, and I was like just so happy, like because for
Yep.
years it was Shea, the tumbling guy, and this is my wife, and now I get
Hmm.
to look and I'm like, that's my wife, like I'm
Yeah.
the sidekick, which is really cool. And to watch her, she won 2020, she won worlds with senior black and our non-tumbling team legacy. So for her to
Hmm.
win two gold, two gold, to win worlds twice was a really proud
Yeah.
moment as a husband, which was really, really cool.
There we go. Good stuff, man.
And we've been here ever since.
Dude, I love this. I,
Yeah.
I absolutely love this. This is good stuff, man. Dude, I have so many questions to ask. So let's do this, Shay.
All right.
Let's get to a break real
Break it.
quick.
My bad.
And then when we get
I just talked. My bad.
no, hey, you're good. Yeah, we'll get to a break real quick and then we'll come back and we'll just keep going down the path.
Sounds good, man.
Owners, directors, coaches, we are in comp season now. So if you're looking for a second set of eyes as you're gearing up for your big events, I'd love to help out. You send me a video of your routine and I send you a video back of your routine with what I would fix and how I would fix it. Teams I've done this for have gone on to be world champions, NCAA All-Star champions, NCAA collegiate champions, summit champions, and D2 summit champions. So if this sounds like something you'd be interested in, you can reach me via email at JasonLarkins, or you can reach me on Instagram at JasonLarkins, or on the Let's Talk Cheer podcast Instagram, Let's Talk Cheer podcast.
All right, so we're back. Shay, I want to follow up with this. You dropped a lot of just good stuff in there that I want to follow up with a couple of things. So first, when did you know you wanted to be a career coach? I feel like a lot of us start when we're younger because it's something to do. Like I'm already involved in cheer or gymnastics. I have a little bit of a background. It's a good way to make, just some gas money or some, fast food money. And then but a lot of people go, but this isn't what I want to do 5-10 years from now. Like, when did you know this is what you wanted to do?
When I moved back to Tampa from Hawaii, I was still pursuing my degrees in public relations. I was still pursuing jobs. Kind of in my brain, I had a really good job in Hawaii, and I was like, oh, I'm in Hawaii. If I got a good job out here, it's easy to get one in Florida. Well, in
Mm-hmm.
Hawaii, you have University of Hawaii and HBU. Those are pretty much the two schools. You move to
Mm-hmm.
Florida, you got Miami, Florida State, USF, UCF. There's hundreds, way more schools. So that dilutes the entry level positions. So I had really no experience, but I
Mm-hmm.
remember going through. It was like a 2 month long interview process, and it was a marketing firm for a real estate. Excuse me. It was marketing for a real estate company, and because it was so long, and I kept going through all these processes, I really thought I had the job, and I spent my last penny on a suit because I was going, and I showed up to my first interview and like something you should not show up to your first interview in, and I spent my last dollar on a suit from like Walmart, like just so that I would have a jacket, because at the time, like I said, I had nothing, and after this 2 month process. I got it's a one sentence, and I still have the email today. I got a one sentence reply that was like, you didn't get the job. And like no explanation of like why I didn't get the job or what it was. And I was like, you know what? Like, and I left that day and I went to the gym, and, there were little kids. And as soon as I walked in, they're like, Jay, hey, how's your day? And I was like, I just received the most demoralizing, like just the weight of the world. I'm like, that's what I'm supposed to do. I'm supposed to come out of college and get a job, and I don't have a job. And I walked into the gym, and these kids were they didn't care. Like they didn't care that I just not got the job. Like I was their tumbling coach, like I was flipping them. Um, and from there on, I was just like grinding, and then started seeing, opportunities of, I got an opportunity to, I got a shout out Doug Yeager, who is he's everybody knows him now as Cheer Updates, but before Cheer Updates, he was out in Delaware, and he brought me up to do there was a coaches conference for the Delaware. I don't know if it was the Delaware State for high school or All Star. I don't remember exactly what it was, but I was doing some safety training, and then he actually recommended me to go up and work with Cheersport Sharks, and this is before Great Whites had won. So this was like, no, nobody, people had heard of them, but nobody knew Cheersport Great White Sharks at the time. And they brought me in to work with them, and I worked with them, and they won. And there were other people involved, and I am not taking credit, please. I am not taking credit at all for their success, but I had an opportunity to be involved with them, and Allie and Lan, and really helped me a lot in telling other people and spreading the word, because at the time, social media wasn't, Twitter and Instagram and all that wasn't really a big deal. It was just kind of word of mouth, like, hey, who'd you work with? Who do you like? And oh, this is who I'd recommend, and they recommended me. And from there, it kind of took off. I was traveling all over the place, working. I've been very fortunate to literally travel the world. I've been Australia, Italy, Finland, all over Canada, all over South America. One time I got a Debbie Love, who is a very dear friend. She called me. Her At the time, one of her parents was not. I don't remember if it was her mother or father wasn't doing well, and she was supposed to speak in London. She was like, "Hey, can you go to London? Speak at this conference." I was like, "Sure. Whatever you want me to do. Like, when is it?" She was like, "You need to be on a flight in about 6 hours." I was like, "What?" So I literally like drove to Orlando, jumped on a red eye, flew to London, got off the plane, walked in, started speaking, spoke, 8 hours straight, crashed, got up the next day, 8 hours straight, and I was on a flight and like the next day. So it wasn't really like, oh, you get to go to London and you know, see anything. I literally like flew in across the pond and flew back. So, but I wouldn't trade that experience for anything, So I've been so fortunate, that I've gotten to, the people of, like I said, kind of with Debbie or with Libby taking a chance on me. Doug kind of took a chance on me, and Allie took a chance on me, and I feel like every gym that's ever brought me in has taken a chance on me. And it took me a long time. Now at Brandon Allstars, I direct a program we have called BA Technique Camps. It's where we send our staff out to do camps and clinics. And now that I'm directing that, I really try to let people know, like, think of your kids, like Jason, think of your team. What's a
Hmm.
team you have? Junior black, senior black? What's a team
Oh
you
yeah,
have?
we have senior black. We have senior
Senior
black. We
black.
have senior red. Yeah.
There you go. So senior black, like, those are your babies. Like, that's your team. If
Hmm.
somebody, if you're letting somebody work with your babies, that's an honor. Like, that's a
Yeah.
whole lot of respect. So treat them treat them well, treat them with kindness, pour everything you can into them, and build the relationships. So to be able to have those opportunities is pretty cool. And one more, when I literally it was the day after I was making the transition from Brandon to Florida Wildcats, I got a call from Andre Carter, who is he works with USASF, and he asked if I'd be interested in speaking at the conferences, and I was just so humbled, because for years I would go to the conferences, and I was, if you've ever seen me at a conference, I apologize, but I'm always pretty outspoken about my opinions and beliefs in the sport, and so for him to take that risk on me as a trainer to others, was really cool. And through that, now I was at every single conference. I was speaking at every USASF conference at the time. They were in California, Chicago, Orlando, Texas, um, Atlanta. If there was a USASF conference, I was speaking at it, which also meant I got involved when, if I wasn't speaking, I was sitting in on somebody else's class, listening to them speak, and then all the the committee, the round tables and stuff. And I was always pretty involved about my opinions on
Yeah.
things. So, over the years, then Allie Stengel reached out to me and asked if I'd be interested in being on the rules committee. So now I'm one of the people that is involved. I am one small piece involved in those conversations that are shaping the industry. So it's pretty cool. It's pretty cool.
Yeah. Shout out real quick. You mentioned London, so I gotta give a shout out to Claire, one of our former coaches. She's finishing
Thanks.
up her master's in London right now. Well, in England, she's in York. So shout out to Claire, friend of the show. Shout out to Andre, who I'm always surprised at the people who tell me they actually listen to the podcast. Like, the podcast is out there. I don't know exactly who listens. And every so often I'm having a conversation with someone. Oh, yeah, I listen to the podcast. Andre said he listens to all the episodes. And I was like, oh, I had zero clue. So shout out to Andre, friend of the show. And
Yeah, Andre's a good dude.
no,
Good
he
dude.
he is. He really is. I'll just take my time to talk about Andre real quick. Andre, I've mentioned this before on the podcast, how I had this routine which I thought was God's gift to cheerleading. And I thought it was the best routine ever. And I was just so proud of this routine. And I had known Andre over the years, and I know he's a judge. And so I sent him this routine. Again, I think it's God's gift to cheerleading. And he sent me an email. This thing was, it was like the book of Job. It was so long. It was like, I was like, man. And so he just rips this routine to shreds. I mean, he's not being mean. He's not being mean at all, but he's giving me real good, constructive feedback. And it was just in every section of how we were just, missing the mark. And like that email right there just taught me so much about the sport, and like just that one singular email taught me so much about the sport and about what we need to be, like how I can be a better coach and like what judges are looking for. And that email was just it's crazy how long ago that email was and how much the sport has evolved, but how much of those things, the principles from that email still stand true. So shout out to Andre. Great guy. And yeah. So real quick, I got to tell everyone this. So everyone, you guys already heard Shea say this. He gets involved with USASF, and now he's part of the decision making, why we can't do step outs and turns in level 2 when everyone was so mad at you. Well, some other things people got mad at you about. People were pretty much on board for punch front forward rolls.
It was
But there's some other things that people are just mad.
it was the round up. So the process is, a suggestion, a rule change is submitted. It's deciphered, and then either the change or not to change is taken to the next step, and then it's discussed, and then taken to the next step. It goes through a whole bunch of filters. So punch front forward roll, back handspring step out, immediate turn, and round off immediate back limber step out. Those were the three big ones. That it was Debbie Love, myself, and Brett Henson from Spirit of Texas. It took us 3 years to get those skills removed. And it was just every time I was just like, I don't understand. Like, why can't you see what I'm seeing? But it
Yeah.
really opened my eyes to like, the industry is not built to do it Shea's way. Like, it's not, like there's so many differences, like culturally from like California. I mean, you're in California, I'm in Florida. Like, our school cheer cycle is different than your school cheer cycle. The way you conduct tryouts is different than the way we do. The way that you set up your competition schedule, like what's important to your parents might be different than what's important to our parents. And we have Brandon Allstars has 2 locations owned by Jocelyn and 1 franchise location. And so we have 3 locations, and all 3 of them are completely different. And one's 30 minutes away, like literally, like our Wesley Chapel location. I do lessons there on Fridays, and they're completely different, like night and day about like parents at Brandon, I can be like, all right, we're going to change this class from 5:15 to 5:30. Like, all right, if I do that at
Mhm.
Wesley Chapel, like it needs to be like, okay, in 2 months, we are thinking about changing
Yeah.
this from 5:15 to 5:30. How will this impact, because, they have different it's different. So, and that's okay. That we just learn that we have to do things different. So as much as in my head, I knew that punch front forward rolls were causing broken bones, there are people out there that were teaching punch front forward rolls safely. And so it was this process of getting the data. I mean, we literally had a kinesiology professor at the University of Kentucky write, it's probably 15 pages of physics and like why this was bad. So it wasn't just well, Shea doesn't like it. Like I knew I didn't like it, and I knew the reasons why. Like as the tumbling coach in my brain, I knew it was wrong, and I knew it needed to be done. But I can't just rip the Band-Aid off. Like there's a process, and as frustrating as that process may be sometimes, it's still important that I respect the process. I don't always like it, but I respect it.
Random question: are Arabian forward rolls illegal in level 5?
Yes,
Do you know?
because you can't
They
tumble,
are.
you can't connect anything after an Arabian.
Oh yeah, you can't connect anything after it. Well, yeah. You're right. You're right. Never mind. Oh, that's a good question. Not a good question. That's a good. Yeah. I feel like maybe we didn't do that. I guess no. I haven't coached level 5 in so long. But yeah, shout out to Cameron, who was our Arabian stop round off whatever full. Um, okay, dude. So maybe different place I want to go with. Let's go to spotting. So you mentioned something that made me think of this. You said you back when you're at HPU, you have kids who twist who need a double twist and kids who don't twist who need a twist, and it kind of sounded like you were spotting a lot of them. But if anyone knows you now, you're not much of a spotter. So how did you transition from being a spotter to being like, I'm going to be more of a hands-off coach?
Um, my opinion on that has really, I've changed it so many times. I still believe the sooner you can get your hands away in the spotting sense, the better. But a lot of that depends on, your equipment, your surroundings. Like if you don't have a tumble track and a landing mat, then you have to spot. I also we did Infinity Gen Next down under with, I spoke at a conference, and then Ramel and I did the camp, and I had all these drills and stations set up, all these really cool drill stations set up, and then he was over here spotting, and we kind of gave them their own time to kind of choose where they wanted to go, and his line was like out the door, and I had like 3 kids working with me, and after that, he and I, we went out to dinner. We're sitting out. We had a beautiful place that we were staying. We were sitting out on the beach, just chilling. Just he and I, like just he and I on Bondi Beach, freaking nuts. And I was like, man, I can't get these kids over here to like try the drills. He's like, I really think that like because I'm spotting, I'm able to build that immediate initial trust and that connection. And when like after I spot them a few times, then they trust me. Then I can say, okay, now go try this drill. So he and I were both in Australia. These kids had no idea who we were. I mean, they knew he was at World Cup and I was at Brandon, but they hadn't met us, right? We'd never worked with them, so they didn't really trust us. When you're throwing whip doubles and standing fulls and stuff like that, like you're talking big skills. Like, and you can get hurt bad if you don't do it right. So the next day I came in and I spotted a little bit, and then the lines kind of evened out some, and they did. So now I tell my staff, you need to spot to build the connection and to build that trust and to build that relationship with that athlete. But there's times to spot and there's times not. The sooner you can get your hands off of them, do it. If you have the equipment that allows you to be so. But sometimes you need to spot to just build that relationship. Like if they don't know you, they have to be able to trust you. So I learned that well. I also had like I said, I was coaching gymnastics uh, and cheerleading when I was at Florida Wildcats, and it was Lightning City Gymnastics at the time. And they used to host, and it might still be, the world's largest gymnastics meet. It's held in Tropicana Field where the Tampa Bay Rays play. It's really cool. It's like this whole baseball stadium that's turned into a gymnastics meet. Um, but I was, because I could spot, there were a lot of smaller females that would ask me, if I would come over and I would spot. So I would start spotting, and I got to where, like, back in the day, it used to be like, who's the coolest, who can spot the most stuff. And at the time, I was spotting everything. I was spotting every kid on any skill, double backs, full in back outs, triples, all these cool dismounts off bars and vaults. And one day, the lady, Cindy Lord, she was a director at the time. She walked me out. She rolled this chair out on the floor and she said, "Sit down." I said, "All right."
Mhm.
So I sat in this chair. She said, "For this week, you have to coach from that chair," which is the opposite
Mhm.
of everything we tell people now. I was like, "You're not allowed to sit down when you coach." She would not
Mhm.
let me out of that chair. So I had to maneuver all the way around the gym. So it was kind of fun. The kids would pick me up and take me from the vault over to the beam, but I had to learn how to get the same thing accomplished without me being
Mhm.
able to spot. She's like,
Yeah.
what if you break your arm? What if God forbid, you're in a car accident? Like, if you were in a wheelchair, could you still do what you need to do? And
Mhm.
although I still spot and I still can spot everything, the amount of spotting that I do is much more limited. And I'll finish it up with one more story. I don't know what day this will be aired, but on January 30th of this month, my dad, who I told you owned the gymnastics gym when I was born, will be having his second replacement surgery on his shoulder. And he
Mhm.
has to wait 6 months before he can have the other one replaced. So he'll have had, this will be his eighth shoulder surgery, and his is a complete replacement. Like, it's not just like a go in, kind of clean it up. Like, it's literally metal. So cut off the bone, replace it with metal, and it's because
Yeah.
and he didn't have the equipment. Like, at the time, he didn't
Mhm.
have the tumble tracks and the pits and the 8-inch mats. Like, he didn't have that, so he had to do what he had to do. But I'm 42 years old. I have a 5-year old. I want to be able to play baseball with him. And my dad was awesome. Don't get me wrong. My dad played baseball. My dad, would suck up whatever pain he had to deal with and would always take care of kids if he had to. If it was between them and him, it was going to be him. But he would make sure he
Yeah.
took care of he would make sure he took care of him for sure. So I've definitely adapted. There was a time where I was like, I refused to spot anybody on anything. And then, kids didn't want to work with me because they didn't even know who I was. They didn't, and so
Yeah.
now, I spot them a little bit, get them work, get them comfortable. I do have there's a girl, we have a new kid in the gym. Her name, we call her Peanut. Her name's Peyton, and she is tiny. And I'm like, every now and then, I'm like, I can spot you on some cool stuff, so
Yeah.
it's kind of fun, but I try not to do it. It's the best for the
Yeah.
kid. They're learning it on their own as long as they can do it safely. If they can do it safely, then that's the
For
way I
sure.
want them.
There we go. All right, Shay, we're going to get to a break right now, but when we come back, we're talking code of points. All right, Shay. So you mentioned this in the previous segment about, you getting involved in the USASF. And, if you ever see me at a conference, I know I'm kind of loud spoken and you give your opinion. So, I feel like, when we brought you on the show originally, yeah, I think the way I introduced you was like, you have been like the spokesperson and the face of code of points and saying like that's what we needed in the industry. So as everyone knows, unless you're living under a rock, or maybe I guess some of our parents might not know, but we have a whole new score sheet this year. And it's based on a code of points. But so let's talk about that kind of like why did you feel so strongly that cheer needed a code of points?
I just, like I said, I have experience in gymnastics. Gymnastics has a code of points. It just makes sense. I've been at big gyms, I've been at small gyms, I've been at all those in between, and there's all this like assumed bias, which I don't buy for a minute. Anybody that's out there that's like, oh, well, they got it because of their uniform. The, the time that happens is so rare. I'm not saying it never happens, but like I've heard you say before, like, go back and really watch your routine and be honest with yourself. Like, oh, they beat us because of their uniform. I'm like, actually, you
Mhm.
dropped your whole pyramid and your whole team in frog springs. Like, no, they beat you because they were better. And
Yeah.
and being at Brandon, like, I've seen the opposite. I've seen like, oh, we're a big gym, so they should be good. So we're gonna judge them a little more strict. And there's both sides of the coin, and I don't believe that happens as often as people assume it does. when it comes down to skill difficulty, and there's so many people that get wrapped up and they hear code of points and they think like, well, that's going to take out creativity and that's going to take out no, no, no. I'm not talking about creativity. I'm not talking about your dance. I'm not talking about your formations. I'm talking about skill difficulty. If a back handspring is worth 1 point, a back handspring is worth 1 point in California. A back handspring is worth 1 point in Florida, Texas, Australia, Antarctica. Like a back handspring is a back handspring. Why are we having to guess on what that's going to be scored difficulty wise? Now, technique's a different animal. I believe eventually there could be technique, a code for technique. We're not there yet. I don't think we're even close to being there yet. But if you open I study code of points frequently because I'm obsessed with it. But if you look at a gymnastics code of points for their compulsory, which is, I would say, their version of our like lower levels 1, 2. Let's say it's a cartwheel. You open it up, there is a diagram of exactly what a perfect cartwheel should look like. And then there's points and there's arrows of like, judges are looking for your knee right here. Judges are looking at this head. Like there's points that are circled. And then the common mistakes are laid out on, okay, here's how you fix it. Here's how, like it's very simple, and it's just really frustrating on the difficulty. Like they're it's it's frustrating when you come out with this new tumbling pass or you come out with a new stunt. Like, why are we guessing on what that's worth on difficulty? Like a full up is a full up. Like if a full up's in California, a full up's in New Jersey, the difficulty should be the same. Right now, if you do 3 jumps and they're any of this list, you are guaranteed to get, was it 4? I don't even know what the numbers are. I've just been looking at technique lately. Like any coach that doesn't have you maxed out in difficulties can't read, I guess. But when it comes to, so I've been hammering on technique and looking at those numbers. But if you can throw a full, you can throw a full. Like it doesn't matter where it is. Why are we changing what it's worth? I don't understand. I can't wrap my head around why there is different value. And I think it would be better for judges. It would be better for coaches. It would be better for kids, across the board. If you do a round off handspring tuck, it should be whatever it is. And it should be whatever that number is. Round off handspring tuck, California, Florida, it should be the same number. I don't understand why it's not, or why it's a secret or why it's this process. It shouldn't be that hard, but for some reason it is. So, and two, so on the flip side of that, if you come up with something new and you come up with this, like, okay, well, I did a back extension roll, pirouette, half turn, step down, back handspring. Well, that's new and unique. What's that? What's the value? Well, we have to guess. We have to show up at a competition and we're going to guess if that judge recognizes how hard that is or doesn't recognize how hard that is. Is it going to be worth the same value? I don't know. Do you know? I don't know. And then we have to guess. And then we go to a competition in California and they do give it some crazy hard value, but we go to a competition in Florida and they don't recognize it. And that same difficulty skill was a 4 in California, but it was a 2 in Florida.
Yeah.
I can't understand it. I just can't.
So how do you think, it's still earlier in the season, so I know a lot of us haven't been to a ton of events and got a ton of feedback yet, but how do you feel it's rolled out so far with this iteration of Code of Points this year? How do you feel it's rolled out so far?
So far, it's still early, like you said, it's very early. I like the direction it's going. I still think that they have, the complaint, the elite teams have to be able to score elite. Like you have to be able to separate yourself. And I don't think there's enough room to do that. I do think that this is the first time that I have seen teams score high 80s, low 90s and not burn down buildings. Like people are like, okay, well, yep, we deserved an 89. I've never heard anyone ever say that. Like if I'm not scoring a 98, then we suck. So I like that because there's 100 points. Somebody should be scoring a 60. Somebody should be scoring a 70. Somebody should be scoring an 80. Like we can there's more points available. Let's use them. So we're working our way down there to be able to open up like lower scores for teams that deserve lower scores. That I like. I, if you level 2, for example, if you're turning at the wrong time, then you're not getting credit and you're going to be knocked out of range. I like that as long as it's done consistently across every skill, across every level. Like I know our 1s and 2s have been hammered, and I know there's more level 1 and 2 teams, so they're going to be a little more picky there. But why am I seeing level 6 teams catch things at prep level or right at their head and get full credit, or do an incomplete list? Like, well, if you're doing that, if you're doing a 1 3/4, that's not a double, so you shouldn't get credit for it. That's, or a half instead of a full. Like, so as long as they're consistent, I'm all for it. Like I said, I would like there to be open the ranges, but it's a step in the right direction. So I'm really interested to see the difference between these regular season comps and end of season comps, especially worlds, because now you go from a 100-point scale to a 150, 140, whatever that, well, I should know that 140 scale, 150 scale, to see what that ends up being. So, but I'm all for hammer them on technique. There shouldn't be guesses. There should never be guesses. But if I take risk, I should be allowed to take a risk. Right now, there's no reward for taking any risk at all. Like, don't do it. In my opinion, like that's smart coaching. But is that going to limit the progression or the growth? So if you're like, okay, well, there's really no sense in me pushing this kid to do a harder tumbling pass. I'll just have him do the easier one and get the same score as somebody doing a harder pass. I'll obviously do the easier one.
Mm-hmm.
So they're not working that harder pass. So they're not getting those progressions to be able to build towards in the future.
Yeah. There you go. Anything else? What's one other thing, or explain to our audience what you mean by the ranges don't seem to be that open right now?
So as far as skill difficulty, kind of what I was telling you, so you literally only have I think it's the range is what, 3.7 to 4? Am I correct on that, Jason?
I don't, what's funny is we have these competitions, and I like to think that we have a pretty good program. We win our fair share of prestigious titles. And it's funny. I like talk to all these coaches and like, hey, they ask me a question. And I'm like, I don't have it memorized. It's in a book somewhere. So it's just easy and because the score sheet changes every year, like at one point, do you remember back in the day, the varsity score sheet? It was before the summit. World's teams were out of 100, but then level 4 teams so level 5 teams were out of 100, level 4 teams were out of like 90, and level 3 teams were out of 80. Like they had this like scaling thing, and it's crazy that the score sheet changes every year. So I don't have it memorized. I don't know what it's out of, but maybe it's out of 5 points this year. It's something weird. It's like out of like 3.6 or 3. I don't know what it is. I'm not even going to say anything, but it's out of some
I mean,
weird number.
yeah, it's a very small margin. Like we said, like I think it's something like if you just had one athlete walk on the floor and then did nothing and walked off, I think your lowest score you get is like a 67, 70.
Mm-hmm.
Like in school, based on that grade, that's a D. Like, so if you do nothing, you get a
Mm-hmm.
D. Like, no, you do nothing, you get
Yeah.
a 0. So
Yeah.
cap numbers like a 4, like 4 is your perfect score. I think the range is 3.7. So you're literally talking 4/10, which ultimately is doubled. So you're talking 8/10 once you're in range. I mean, that's so if I do the hardest elements possible, like every hardest element possible, I can be at a 4. And you do, like, you're doing elements, but they're nowhere as long as if we're in the same ballpark and I really push the envelope, the only thing I can get's a 4, and the worst you can get is a 3.7, 3.6. Like I can, at most, I beat you on by point 0.8. Well, then chances are you're not going to do it with really good technique. So I'm going to do it with better technique. And now we're in technique and I can go for a full point. So maybe you beat me by point 0.8 on difficulty, but I beat you by a full point on technique. I beat you. I'm beating you by 0.2. It's not worth the risk. So I would love a code of points where we can sit there and look and be like, you know what? Like, I'm killer at tumbling. So I'm going to throw the hardest thing I possibly can, and I'm going to go for a 10. And you look at it and you're like, I'm going to go for an 8. And then we switch, and you go for a 10 and stunning, and I go for an 8 and tumbling. And then we're really, you know what? I'm like, you know what? I could tweak one thing here, and I could catch up with them. And then you're really, that puts a lot of responsibility on coaches and judges, and people don't like people don't like taking responsibility in cheerleading. It's always nice when it's somebody else's fault instead of like, because I go back and I made this mistake, and Debbie. So if you don't know who Debbie Larson is, she's the direct. I don't know what her title is at Cheersport, but she runs Cheersport. Like she is the Cheersport queen. And years ago, so this is before they were varsity. It was tumbling, and it used to be. So when we think about synchronized, like if you throw 10 passes or 10 people throw one pass, that's synchronized, correct? Well, the way it was counted on that score sheet at that time, if I threw 10 people at the same time, it counted for one skill. And it was in the rules, and I did not read it, and I was livid. And when I say livid, I was in the coach's room doing everything but flip tables. Like I was so pissed. And my team, and everybody saw the routine and they did amazing. And we came out and I think there were 9 teams and we were 8th. We were 8 of 9. And I was like, I'm like, what on earth could possibly have happened? And I went back and I was like, there's no way, that's such garbage. So, day 2, me being the coach that I was back again, I'm not condoning this. I'm just telling this as a story, but I had to split them up. So I had people tumbling solo behind the pyramid just to get the number in. Like it was like a circus. It was a don't do that. Like, don't do that. What I should have done was read the rule score sheet, because it was clearly written, but I did not, we just 2 weeks before we were on a different score sheet. So, okay, everything looks pretty similar. I didn't read the fine print. It wasn't in fine print. Like, it was my fault. But our score, because it was 50-50, I think it was back then, it was on like a 400-point scale. So
Mm-hmm.
we were an 8th out of 9. And then day 2, we had the highest score by like 30 points.
Yeah.
And, and we went from like 8th to 7th. So
Yeah.
that was a humble pie that I had to, and I had to go to my parents and say, I messed up, like your
Yeah.
kids did everything I asked them to do. And I went in there that night, that first night, Saturday night, and it was everybody's fault but mine. And Debbie, listened, she listened to me say a lot of things that I shouldn't have said. And then she's like, come back in 30 minutes. So then I
Mm-hmm.
left, I came back, cooled down a little bit. And she opened the book and she said, Shay, right here is where it says it. Like, as I don't know what else to tell you. Like, you didn't read this line and this is what it says.
Yeah.
Um, and I have a lot, again, a couple weeks later, I really called her up and had a very deep felt apology to her, and
Mm-hmm.
also to my kids and my staff, my coaches, my parents, my kids. I messed up, but I learned from that. And as I'm sitting here asking you, what is the point range? And I don't know it off the top of my head, which I should know, but before, before I went in, I would make sure that I knew that. So
Yeah.
you take responsibility, make sure you do it. These families are paying a lot of money to be able to go in there, and we owe it to them to put our best foot forward.
There we go. Spoken like a champion. All right, Shay, let's hop into this real quick before we get into our final 4 questions. We got the All-Star Coaches Tumbling page, started by you. Oh, I was gonna say yours truly, but that usually
Yeah.
means me.
Yeah.
But yeah. So tell me about the Facebook tumbling page. Shout the name out one more time so people can if there's any coaches on there who aren't on there can follow.
Let me look it up. I don't even know what it is off the top of my head. Hold
Okay.
on.
You all know the score sheet. We all know the tumbling page name. We
It
got too many
is,
things in our lives.
yeah, it's All-Star Tumbling Coaches. And it's a Facebook, it's a Facebook group that just people go in there and talk tumbling. Everybody knows of ASGA, and there was a time where I just, people would go in there like they would ask for, is this legal? And I would go in there and I'd be like, oh, this is, no, it's not legal, or yes, it's legal. And they're like, what are you
Hmm.
talking about? You don't know what you're talking about. I was like, I wrote the rule. I know exactly what I'm talking
Yeah.
about. But, you know, as polite as I could, I was just like, no, I'm pretty sure, and again, now to this day, if somebody asks me for a rule, I'm like, video it, send it in. Like that is
Hmm.
your only guarantee. Because if you show up to a competition, you're like, well, Shea told me it was legal. That doesn't, it could be legal, but maybe you performed it differently, or maybe what
Yeah.
you were typing and was different than what I understood it different than what you meant. Um, and so I kind of started backing off of being as involved in there, and I got in a group text, and I think it started off with like me, Sean Guzman from Top Gun, David Petty, Victor, and we were just like put something, we'd video a kid that was struggling on something, and we'd be like, oh man, like I've tried every drill. Like, can y'all watch this video? What am I
Hmm.
missing? And Victor would be like, Shay, look at a round off. And I was like, yes, I know. I should have done that. And I didn't. And I'm a
Hmm.
dummy. And I should have. So eventually I stopped sending videos. It was like, okay, I've already fixed the round off. What else do you see? But sometimes you get
Hmm.
so wrapped up in looking at a kid, looking at the skill, and they'll say they're doing a round off handspring full. Like, you watch that full so many times because you're trying to fix the full.
Hmm.
What about the round off or the back handspring? So,
Yeah.
uh, but and he would send drills, and Sean would send drills, and then David, and then I think I moved to Midwest, and I was like, oh, can I add, Kyle Bright, added him in the group. And then Sean was adding people, and David, and it got to like this group of like 10 people. And it was like, and then finally Victor was like, hey man, my phone is blowing up. Can we like create a Facebook group or something? So, so Sean and I created a Facebook group, and it started with like, it was a group text of like 10 people. And I look at it right now, there's 2,300 people that are involved in it, which is from all over the world, which is really, really cool to be able to sit there and say, like, um, these people, we all love tumbling. There's Amy Boardman's in there, she was Simone Biles' coach. You got Wendy Bruce Martin, um, who was an Olympian. You got Elliot, and there's power tumblers in Finland, so it's people in Australia. It's really cool. I really, really like it. It's people post in there, hey, what do you think? And some people like it, some people don't, and you get some suggestions, but you get another set of eyes that helps you out and helps you coach. And it's kind of like anything else on the internet. You gotta filter the good with the bad, and take what you like and take, kind of ignore what you don't. But um, it's been really cool. I really like it. I'm really proud of it. Really proud to see where
Yeah.
it's gone.
No, awesome page. It's required reading for our staff. So when they join staff, especially like our younger coaches who don't really have too much experience coaching, even our most experienced coaches, but I'm like, hey, you got to get in this group and you will find a ton of drills. If like you're struggling with your class and you don't know how to set up, back walkover drills or back handspring drills or whatever it is, get in here and, just search back handspring. You'll see a ton of videos and, so it's a really, really good resource. I've gotten a lot of really good drills out of there. And it's cool. A lot of conversations, a lot of debates in there that are just, good that I really feel like move the industry forward, like get us thinking about just different ways to view the sport or to view tumbling. And really good page. You're doing an excellent job with that page. So shout out to the page. Again, if you're a coach and you're not on that page right now, yeah, get on that page. Definitely a good one.
Yeah, man, love to have it. I gotta give a shout out to Wendy Malone. She has one for preschool tumbling as well, where she like
Mm-hmm.
just I think I say this all the time. The growth of Brandon Allstars, I put a lot of it into the growth of our younger program, and it's really
Mm-hmm.
vital. So she has another one that's just preschool stuff that she does a really good job with as well.
She just DM'd me like within the last week. She just DM'd me. I was like, hey, I was on my drive. I typed in Cheer Podcast. I was driving, a pretty long distance. Typed in Cheer Podcast. Your podcast came up. Listened to the one with Jeff Benson. That was great. It was awesome. And then, we talked back and forth for a little bit. And then she mentioned her preschool. Check, I have a preschool tumbling page. And then I totally forgot about it until just now. So I need to go join that and make sure our coaches get on that too. So
Yeah.
anyway,
Hers is,
Shea, let's get
hers is bigger than mine. So,
Oh, really? There we go.
yeah.
All right. Well, I'm joining that one. All right,
Yeah.
Shea, let's get into these final 4 questions. All right, Shea, tell me something. What needs to start, stop, or change in the industry?
What needs to start? I think more people just need to start being a little more. People need to get out there and learn different ways more. They need to start.
Mm-hmm.
I got my shadowing, going to other gyms and sitting and listening, and we get so wrapped up into our stuff. Like people need to start getting it. Like you can only learn so much within your 4 walls. Like if I'm only learning from Jason and Jason's only learning from Shea, then eventually we're gonna max out. Like we got to get
Mm-hmm.
out there more. Start, stop. Uh, the Anon crap's got to stop. I hate it all. It's despicable. It kind of goes back to zero responsibility. Again, I'm not saying I'm not out for criticism, um, as I think everybody is and should be, but put your name to it. Take some responsibility. Take some ownership. If you wouldn't say it to,
Mm-hmm.
and I tell my kids all the time when they go on there and they're like, "Oh, this person said this." I was like, "Look, you tell anybody that has a critique that and this stands. So if you're listening, it stands. I will pay anyone $100 if they can come in and make it through an hour of senior black tumbling, like my senior
Mm-hmm.
black tumbling training. Like let them take all the criticism you want, like ignore it and tell them like
Mm-hmm.
my coach said, $100. You come in, you deal with us for an hour, you make it through it, I'll give you $100 cash." And then they all laugh about it. Oh, they would never. And I'm like, exactly, because
Yeah.
it's very easy to sit behind a computer and say like, oh, this is what should be done or shouldn't be done. I'm like, all right, cool. You know what? Maybe you're right. Come in, come in and show me. If you're not going to come in and
Yep.
show me, keep your mouth shut. Or if you're not going to say it on the, if you're not going to say it, oh, if you're not going to say it to my face, then keep your mouth shut. So that's my
Yep.
fun. Start, stop, change. Again, code of points. Like keep changing, keep heading that way. Keep heading that way.
There you go. Good stuff, man. All right, here we go. Next question is any rumors, narratives, or myths you want to debunk?
Oh man, I am an avid listener to your show, and I've been thinking on this forever. And I'm like, I was like, one day I'm gonna get on there and I gotta answer this question. And rumors, myths. Um, I guess it's true that Brandon doesn't have air conditioning, but it's not true that we don't get what we do have two. They're called big ass fans. They're like helicopter blades.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and so it's not too bad. We give lots of water breaks. We do give lots of fan breaks. Um, so it's not too bad. So
There you go. That was a good one. It's true we don't have AC, but we do give water breaks. There you go. That's a good one. I know.
that's the
You know
only
it's so funny. It's like big gyms just get like the most evil. Like they're doing this in the gym, right? And it's like, are you kidding me right now? It's so funny, like the things that people make up about the big gyms in the industry. So anyway, yeah, they don't give water breaks.
no.
Who else should we
We get
have?
lots
Yeah. All right, who else should we have as a guest on the show?
of, Debbie Love. You can't go wrong with Debbie Love. She's the best. Um, Dana Fielding, I think, is amazing.
Yep.
Um, Brett Henson, I think, is incredible from Spirit of Texas. I would also highly recommend, my wife, Kyle Armstrong. He's phenomenal. Jocelyn,
Hmm.
owner, she's phenomenal. Um, the best of the best.
There we go, man. Good stuff. Real quick, Dana Fielding. That's actually a really good one. I've actually thought about having like Debbie on like several times. I was like, oh, but now she's retired. I'm like, she's out of the game. She'll want to come on the show. But Dana, I have never actually thought about that. And funny story about Dana, which I will definitely tell the story if she comes on. But I remember I had a legality in our routine at NCA. This is my last year at PCM. And we had a legality in our routine. And we had been trying to win NCA every year. We always came up short. Every year we came up short with our senior 3. And I knew it was my last year at PCM. And I wanted to go out with these kids with an NCA title because we worked so hard for it, And we go that last year. And after day 2, we had a fall or something, or a tumble bus, maybe both on day 1. And so we're behind the 8 ball a little bit. And then day 2, they hit, and then we get our score sheets back and we have a legality. And I am just distraught, man. And I remember like texting Dana and being like, I just need a place to cry right now. And so I went to AccuScore and just cried in AccuScore. Like I just, the curtains are all back there. And I just cried in AccuScore by myself. And, eventually came out, told the kids, like, hey guys, we had a legality. Actually, I didn't find out we had a legality until after, I wasn't able to tell them before. So they're on stage and I know there's no shot of us winning because we had this legality or whatever. And I'm just like trying to tell them like, hey guys, it ain't happening. Like it ain't happening. So anyway, so thanks Dana for letting me cry in AccuScore.
My favorite Dana story is I was coaching at gym time, and it was me and Debbie and Kaylin. And if I'm the loud one, Debbie's the quiet one. Kaylin like never raises his voice either. And so we had a legality, and we walked back there and we were looking at it, and we had, freeze framed it. And Kaylin's like in there talking, and Dana looks at him and is like, you will not raise your voice. And I started dying laughing. Like I could not stop laughing. She's like looking at me, and I'm like, just for the record, we are backstage, and it's Shea, Debbie, and Kaylin, and Shea is not the one getting in trouble. Like it was not me.
Yeah.
Like I could not stop laughing. I was like, just for the record, it wasn't me. It wasn't me this time.
Yeah. Good stuff, dude. We gotta have Dana on. That's actually such a good. I never thought about having Dana on. That's such a good one because I have another really good Dana story that I will save for when she comes on the pod. It's a really good Dana one. Yeah. Okay. All right. So where can people, they want to follow you or the gym or get in contact with you for BA camps, plug away.
SC Flips, as I got that from Sneed State. That was my very first email that one of the guys at the gym or that I coach with, he created. So it's SC Flips, TikTok, Instagram, Twitter. I'm trying to get a little more involved in TikTok. That's about the only one. Just I pretty much let kids video and kids do it, and they wanted me to be the face of it, but they have to come up with the drills and they have to record it and they have to set it up. So that's been pretty neat. So they all like to be involved. Instagram, Twitter, you'll probably just see a lot of pictures of my kid. If you ever want to email me, Shay@BrandonAllstars.com. We have our BA technique program where we send, staff out. They can do stunts, baskets, jumps, tumbling, anything, you name it. And we can send them out to you. We'd love to be involved. BrandonAllstars.com. We got all the information. If you're in Jacksonville, Tampa, Wesley Chapel, we love it. Hopefully you'll, if you see us at, we got Senior Black will be at the majors. We got a lot of folks that'll be at Indy, Cheersport, NCA. So very proud of our program, proud of the staff that we have. I'm very, very proud to be a part of it.
There we go. Hey, Shea, thanks for coming on the show. You're welcome back anytime.
Hey, man. Thank you.
Of course. Hey, Let's Talk Cheer podcast listeners. Although this episode has come to an end, there are a few other cheer podcasts out there that you can add to your weekly routine. If you're a gym owner or gym director and want to dive more into the business side of things, then check out the Connecting People and Profits podcast with host Dan Cotton. If you're a former cheerleader and want to hear the success stories from other former cheer athletes after their cheering days are done, then you'd love the Life After Cheer podcast with host Danielle Donovan. And if you're a cheer parent and need another cheer parent to relate to and want to hear things from a cheer mom's perspective, then the Cheer Mom podcast is for you. Check one of them out, check them all out, and we'll see you guys next week. Thanks for watching the Let's Talk Cheer podcast. Definitely subscribe so you never miss out on anything from the show.